I always used to look at business owners when I was younger and thought, you know what, I'd love to be like you, but I'm not clever enough.
When you get in no, or just not being listened to, it's like, okay, well, we'll just go and do it ourselves then. People thought I was genuinely crazy and deluded. If you don't want to be mediocre, don't be mediocre.
I'm an ex-football player and now running Floats, which is a very exciting marketing brand. Team of 25, we roughly do 2 million in sales.
How did you two meet?
Do you want to say or should I?
You say. I can't believe we're talking about this.
I got kicked out of school at 15. Okay. I was what you would call a little shit. Didn't have a clue what I was doing.
How did that feel, like the moment you got dropped?
I was thinking to myself, how the hell am I here?
We've got to grab this opportunity and we've just got to make it happen.
We worked day in, day out. Like, I'm talking like grueling days.
All day, all night.
But we loved it.
What advice would you give to somebody who's just starting a business today?
Having a personal brand if you're a B2B founder for me is a non-negotiable.
If I'm not embarrassed about who I was last year, I'm not moving fast enough, I'm not developing.
Oh, we've made it, haven't we?
Hello guys.
Hey.
Hello.
Welcome to Rebels.
Thanks for having us.
I'm so excited for this episode because obviously, well, in fact, first I should introduce you both. We have Ashleigh and Mitch, and we'll get into the story a little bit more. But this is really exciting because it's the final episode of season 1, and typically we have one guest, but now we've got 2, so even more story to get into, which is going to be epic. I also feel like it's quite like a full circle moment for us because when I started my agency, Yellow Hippo, you two were the kind of 2 of the first people I spoke to, and now how long has it been since then?
Wow. It's been
maybe a year and a half, is it?
That has flown
by.
Yeah.
I remember when we first met you. Wow, you're so different in such a short period of time. But you know, credit to you. The first time that I met you, I said to Ash, the kid's got something. I think one thing that I noticed from an early perspective as well, like you work so hard. You know, people not realise the amount of work rate that you put in the early days to get here. So
thank you.
So fair play.
Thank you so much. But yeah, it's been a long time. I think back then I was a freelancer then.
Yeah.
I think I spoke to you before I even started freelancing.
Yeah, you did.
So we had a little call, didn't we?
Yeah, because I remember I always used to help you out with like little things about, you know, when you get a client, you know, invoice them up front, you know, like, just little things like that.
I was like a deer in headlights. So thank you for. I feel like I've learned so much from you as well.
Yeah, I feel like we was in such a different place as well. Like back then, like we've grown so much now as well.
Yeah, I love that. I love just seeing your story, and obviously we've been on separate journeys, but it's been epic, which we're going to get into. I can't wait. But first, because we've got 2 guests, it's a little bit different. So go into your kind of individual stories. Tell us a bit about yourselves. Let's start with you, Mitch.
Cool. So I'm the founder CEO of Float. So originally my journey actually started in football. I'm an ex-football player, which is crazy. I feel like I've had about 3 different lives, and I'm only 28, which is quite funny. But I'm an ex-football player, ex-e-commerce brand owner, and now running Float, which is a very exciting marketing brand in Manchester. Team of 25. We roughly do 2 million in sales. We're about just coming up to 2.5 years old. Quite the journey. We're completely bootstrapped as well, which we're very proud of. So yeah, looking forward to going into it a bit more today.
Yeah, I love that, Ashleigh.
So co-founder with Mitch, obviously, and CMO recently, which is really exciting. So I am an ex-salesperson back in the day, and went on to have multiple e-com brands, which is where I was more a creative marketer back in those different roles that I did. So now to be obviously a CMO in like quite a fast-growing company, which is ours, which is a little bit crazy, but so that's a little bit about me.
Amazing. Because we had like a similar job growing up, didn't we? Where we, I don't think I've ever like mentioned this, but I had a job where I would work with like this agency, and we'd go door to door knocking, trying to sell, like trying to get people to sign up to, you know, donate like £3 to charity a month or something. I actually got fired from that job because I wasn't very good.
Do you want to hear something mad? I used to be a teacher at one point. I was a teaching assistant, which was like, so do you know, not a teaching assistant, sorry. Do you know what are those things called? I can't even remember what the job was. Do you know when you fill in for someone?
Yeah, a substitute teacher.
I was a substitute teacher.
In what subject?
When I was anything and everything. Like, so when I came out of football, at like 19, 20. didn't have a clue what I was doing. The only thing that I had was I had a sports qualification that gave me some form of like teaching, but it was like so basic. And this recruiter would just put me in anywhere and anywhere that they could just to make a bit of money. And I was like a substitute teacher, and I was thinking to myself, how the hell am I here? And it's just, we've all had random jobs back in the day, haven't we?
I think my most random one in terms of where I am today was when I was a legal secretary. And I did that for 5 years, but I was very young when I had that role. And then obviously went on to do the role that you're talking about, the sales. Well, you called it field sales, but it was, I'm not really sure what you would even class it as. Yeah. It was very, how would you even explain that
like
job?
Just selling random shit on the street.
Yeah, so like sometimes people would see me in the streets of Manchester on Market Street, and I'd be stopping people, waving them down. Hi, who does your gas and electric?
Gas and electric.
Yeah, so I was like swapping people's gas and electric providers. For me, I was very good at that. I think it was more the reason I was good at that role was because of what they promised and what they sold, like the vision behind it of, oh, you can have your own office one day in your own city. And that to me was like the potential breakthrough of, being in a working class family to then going on and doing something bigger and better. I almost, I was naive, I was young, and I really bought into that idea. So so I was there for a while. Yeah.
It's amazing though that you now do have your own office in the city.
Yeah.
But you've done it yourself and you've done it with something you're really passionate about as well, which I think is so important. And I speak to a lot of like students as well and going to unis and that kind of thing. And I always say like, do something you enjoy, because you can be really good at something and earn loads of money, but you're not going to be happy. So how did you two meet?
Okay. So,
let's get into it.
Yeah. So me and Ash met in a call centre in Preston 7 years ago. So we're both originally from Preston, and we met in a call centre, which, you know what, to this day I've learned so much from that call centre, in
100%.
terms of how I'd like my office to be, how I don't want it to be, things you learn from management, again, like the good things, the bad things. And I just think like those experiences when you're young are so important because they shape you,
they mold
and you learn more from the bad stuff than what you do the good stuff. So yeah, me and Ash met in a call centre. Feels like a long time
How
ago
long
now.
ago was it?
I think it was like 7 or 8 years.
Wow.
So Ash started, so I was working at the company for like a couple of like maybe like a year or something. Ash started, and yeah, maybe asked her out. In fact, you actually came to me.
You asked who out.
So actually, it was a Christmas do, and Ash
just don't have too many drinks.
Slow down. Okay, yeah, exactly.
Go on. Do you want to say, or should I?
You say.
Yeah, it was a Christmas do, and Ash is so stubborn. She would never ever tell anyone that she liked them, and she was like at the bar being like, Mitch, I think you're nice. I like you, and I was like,
I can't believe we're talking about this.
Yeah, and
oh wow.
And yeah, and literally from there, so literally that was a Christmas do, and pretty much we spent like Christmas Day together, like, and then literally ever since then we've literally been joined at the hip, and it's just gone from like, literally, and we had like, they were nice days, weren't they?
I think it all started with the ambition level. So, when I came out of the role that we'd both done, the field sales thing, I'd built up so much ambition after that role, and I thought I could take on the world. And then, going into a call centre, that was all about trying to make as much money as I could, really. And then Mitch was very good at his job, and we just ended up, we connected on an ambition level, which I'd never had before. So it was like quite a big thing for me, because like my main thing in life has always been about taking myself to high levels, and I'd never really met anyone who could kind of have conversations with me about like the future and like big goals. People thought I was a little bit crazy when I was younger, because I was like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that.
I love that.
And I didn't have anyone that I could connect with on that. And then Mitch was like that first person that I connected with on an ambition level.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it all began.
This podcast is proudly sponsored by Fabric, a marketing training academy that runs a world-leading master strategy program for marketers looking to excel in their careers. The program teaches you frameworks that have been used by global brands and coaches you how to build a live marketing strategy in just 12 weeks. Now, I personally know many people who have completed Fabric's program and who have benefited directly from getting promotions and accessing dream job roles to accessing increased marketing budgets and gaining the confidence to excel in their careers. Fabric is kindly offering listeners of this podcast 10% off their program so you can secure your place on it. For more information, check out the link in the bio. Use code REBELS10 in all capitals to claim the offer. Did either of you go to, like, education-wise, did you college, uni? What was the story there?
I got kicked out of school at 15.
Okay.
I was what you would call a little shit.
Right, okay.
He
was a rebel.
I was a rebel. I was a rebel. I was
Okay.
honestly the cockiest kid you will ever meet. Massive
That's
ego.
probably what drew me to him.
Yeah, no, but honestly,
You're like a bad boy.
when I was a kid, honestly, I had such a big ego, and I got massively humbled in life when I was like, because I came out. I had a big ego because I was a footballer when I was young. So I used to think I was better than everyone. I wasn't, but when I was a kid, because I used to get like special treatment, you know. When I was at school, I used to get like Tuesday afternoons and Thursday afternoons off because they'd allow me to go and play football because it was like for a Premier League club. So I was always like, I always just felt I was a bit better than everyone. And I took that into life when I was like 18 or 19. And then when I actually got released and basically dropped and fell out of football when I was like 19. And it massively, massively humbled me. And going to the call centre was the best thing ever that I ever did. Because
how did that feel, like the moment you got dropped and released?
I had like big head loss for like a good 6 months, and that's why I was like a substitute teacher for a little while. I was trying to figure out where am I, like, you know, because I had no qualifications, I had nothing. I was really an uneducated kid because I'd always relied on football, and I was just so lost. And what I would say about the call center, it just massively humbled me. I was going into a call center, and you know, people would say, "Oh, where have you come? What company have you come from?" And I'd be like, "I used to be a footballer," and they'd be like, "What are you doing here then?" So every other day you're answering questions like...
That must have been quite difficult as well, though.
It was, but again, it was humbling. And that's exactly what I needed. And I'm really proud because I've got zero ego whatsoever. I've been on a journey of having one, not having one, and now I'm just really comfortable with who I am and the type of person I am. And, you know, I like who I am. But back then, I look back and think, wow, you were a dickhead, mate.
I appreciate the honesty.
Yeah.
Ash, so did you... uni, education, what was it like?
No, so obviously went to school. I wasn't great at school. Definitely not very economic at all. You know, got very basic grades, and off the back of that, just did not want to go to college, didn't want to go uni, was just not interested in that whatsoever. I was quite dyslexic in testing environments, so just wasn't a good place for me. So yeah, as soon as I left school, straight into a job. That's where I basically started as I was a legal secretary. Initially, I went in as like an admin assistant, just basically making brews.
Yeah.
You know, I was the skivvy. And then went on, became a receptionist and a legal secretary, and then started being a legal secretary for some of the partners in the business. But yeah, after kind of 5 years of doing that, I realised that I was this personality in the office that really stood out, and there was no one really like me. Obviously very young as well, still at that point. So yeah, went to Ibiza for the summer at that point. Came back, got into the field sales, and then yeah, so everything from my end is more the ambition to try and learn new things was like my main thing. I was always very creative. I wanted to get into the creative industry, but I was knocked back time and time again. You know, making fancy applications for Misguided and all these fashion brands. Fashion was always quite a big passion to me growing up. I think it is for every girl. But never could get in based on not having a degree. That was my like main sticking point, and that's when it basically pushed me to want to have my own econ brand, because I was like, well, you can keep saying no, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'll do it for myself. If everyone's like, no, you're not coming in, it's like, fine, I'll do it myself.
I love that.
That is literally when the first econ brand started as well. Off the back of all them no's, I was like, I'm doing it myself then.
I always say, like, the most successful people that I've met and the most interesting people are people who like have this delusional level of self-confidence, and I celebrate that. I think it's like wicked, because to have that level of ambition when you're so young is, I think, really commendable. But also, if you're not surrounded by people, to have that courage to be like, actually, this is my goal, and being in this environment is not going to help me get to that place. I need to get out of my comfort zone. I need to try new things. I need to push myself.
Definitely.
And I think both of you, would you say you're like examples of that?
Yeah, I think for me, so originally when we started our first business, I think I started with the idea. So fast forward a little bit of time, we've left Preston. Ash actually was like, Mitch, we need to go move to Manchester. You know, we're in this small town. People talk about what they used to do at school all the time. That's what the conversations are. If you ever have like friends from small places, they talk about what happened at school 20 years ago. Yeah. And it's like, I hate that shit. Like, you know, I want to talk about what we're doing for the next 20 years, not the last 20 years.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was like, in order for us to do what we need to do in our lives, we need to go and just be in a different environment, which we did. And Ash was a big driver of that in the early days. We then got jobs in Manchester, quite corporate places. And if anyone's ever seen a LinkedIn post of mine where I was wearing shorts, this was inside joke. But, you know, if you've seen a LinkedIn post of me that went viral a few years ago,
tell us the story.
So I was working for a pretty corporate organization in Manchester. Thought I was, you know, where I want to be in life. I'm on this like ladder of moving up and up and up. And there was one day, it was like a really, really hot day. It was like in the middle of June. It was like in the middle of June. And normally, if you're in an office and it's like not client facing, normally people can wear like smart shorts, you know, because it's like, you know, it's sweltering hot. It's just normal. So anyway, I come into work and I've got like smart shorts on. I'm not wearing like swimming shorts.
Speedos.
No, I saved them for the weekend. So anyway, I come in and I've got these like smart shorts on, and my boss comes in and is like, "Can I have a word?" And I'm like, "Yeah, is everything okay?" And he was like, "Just the shorts." And I'm thinking, I don't have any meetings today. Like, you know, like, can I just wear them? Like, it's really, really hot. It's like 30 degrees. I'm melting. And he was like, "Are you all right just to go home and just swap it for some suit?"
That's insane.
And I was like, really? Like, really? So anyway, I went home. And then when I was...
You were sent home because you weren't allowed to go back in.
Yeah.
So I remember I was working from home then.
Yeah. And I went home and I was thinking to myself, this ain't for me. Do you know, like, this is not for me. It's such a childish thing. And I feel like in the corporate world, it's full of childish things like that are just stupid. And, you know, I think it's got better now that hybrid working is a thing. And, you know, there's more flexibility. But 4 or 5 years ago, or, you know, when that was, it was a different world than what we live in now.
Completely. It was very... Because I had a similar experience when I was applying for corporate grad schemes. Because obviously, like, most universities encourage you to get these like big grad scheme, very shiny with big brands, you know. And I experienced the same thing, just like going to visit officers, interviews, assessment centres. It was very... I felt like I couldn't be myself.
Yeah.
I was like trying so hard to fit into this like mold of what they wanted that I was losing myself in the process, and I was there for like 3 hours, and already that had happened.
I remember there was this one place that I worked, which I'm not going to name. It was probably one of the most toxic environments I've ever been. No one talked to each other. Like you got like 30 people sitting in a room, not really allowed to talk to each other. And I used to. When I left, when I eventually handed my notice in, I remember I just screamed in my car. It was like a burst of energy because I've just gotten rid of this like 12-month period in life, and it's like, but there's a lot of places like that exist, and I think one thing that me and Ash are really big on is the culture that we've built in our office, and a big thing is actually hiring individuals that are aligned together. it only takes one individual that you hire that isn't aligned to mess up the whole dynamic of the office, especially when you've got a small team. So what's really important to us is, you know, we bring in people that are aligned, people that enjoy spending time with each other, and that's up to us to get right. But yeah, we've learned a lot from, you know, places that we've used to work in. We used to work in before.
I love that. And Ash, with the ecom brands, tell us how that has started. So you both had kind of separate jobs. You both were kind of unhappy in those jobs for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
You come together and then magic happens. So talk me through that process.
So
I think COVID, wasn't it?
yeah, it was when COVID. Oh no, before that we start. Yeah, you can't. There were very small things back then, but you getting into the mindset of doing the ecom things, it was all when we was working in jobs. So not being happy in those jobs, coming home, and I remember we used to live in a flat in Ancoats, and the view from the sofa was just of all of the city, and every night we would come home from our corporate jobs that we didn't like, we'd sit down on the sofa and we'd literally brainstorm ideas of what we could do to do something,
for like a year.
Like build something. So the first idea was a menswear brand. So we went on this journey with this menswear brand. Then we flipped from that to a couple of different drop shipping brands that we created just from scratch. That was more from a learning perspective. We wanted to learn how to build websites on our own and how to do all these different things, so that when the right brand did come along, we was able to, you know, have the experience to go on and do what we needed to do and build the brands on our own, because we didn't have any budget. Like we've never had savings, so we had to kind of learn these things from scratch and do it ourselves.
I would say that, so we started originally in the e-commerce game, and that was like business university to us. That was and if anyone is at the start of their journey and they're looking for something to like how they can learn about the world of business, go and start your own e-commerce brand. The reason why: you're going to build your own website, you're going to do your own marketing, you're going to source your own products, you're going to, you know, work with influencers, you're exposed to so many areas within business. And that
I think the main one as well was understanding profits. So, you know, when you get into the e-commerce world, it's all exciting and you want everything to look amazing, but only over time do you realize that actually, you know, you need to really have a hold of your numbers. And only after a couple of those situations that happened, different ecom brands, only after that point did we start to really understand profits and making sure that we was doing things, you know, in the right way.
It's honestly, it's quite mad to think. So we had a jewelry brand that was the one that popped. I think we did 250 in sales in year one, either 250 or 300k in sales in year one. No investment, just two kids. That's literally amazing. Not a clue what they're doing. Just like learning on the job.
I love that.
Week out. It's
I fucking love that.
That was literally in COVID and as well. It was like the worst time you could probably start an ecom brand.
Do you know what was mad? So this was like, so we started this brand at the start of COVID, like January. Was it like, I can't remember the specific time, but it was January, and then everyone got furloughed in Feb. And
we was like, yes, oh my God, we get to be at home and build the brand. So for us, it was like, oh my God, this is our chance. This is our opportunity. We've got to grab this opportunity and we've just got to make it happen. And I think we did. You know, we did well with what we had.
We had like a conversation with ourselves, because it was like, when you're in the entrepreneurial world, you'll get a bit of luck and you'll get opportunities, but you need to go and grab it. And you know, we got at the time our jewelry brand was doing about £1,000 in sales a month, not enough to to pay for tea, let alone a wage. And we said when we got furloughed from our employers, it was like, look, we need to make sure that when they say come back to work, we're not going back, because our business is going to be doing that good of amount of sales that, you know, we don't need to. So we was furloughed for about 3 months. We worked day in, day out. Like, I'm talking like grueling days,
all day, all night.
But we loved it, because previously we'd been used to working on nights and weekends, because that's the only time when we could, you know, fit in working for our brand. So to be able to, it felt like a luxury. It felt like someone's paying us a wage from the furlough scheme to, you know, start our own brand. And I know that it was obviously a very difficult time for a lot of people, and obviously I'm not disputing that, but for us it was something which was an opportunity. And you know, and we took it with both hands. And when the furlough scheme ended, the business was doing about 30 grand in sales per month, and then we didn't go back to our employers, and ever since then it's just gone from, you know, strength to strength. So
I would also say throughout that period, because the role that we was in, it was only just, our salaries were only just about paying for our bills back then. So we didn't have like a budget to put into the brand really. We would save every penny we could, but still it wasn't really much. What that meant is we had to get creative with how we marketed ourselves, and we did create a buzz around that brand, and we was just trying to find anything we could do to create a buzz behind the brand, and we was creating a buzz behind the brand. It was great, and you know, and that's where it started to snowball a little bit more. But I think now it's really helped me today in my role, because I now know I'm always in the mindset of shoestring budget. I'm not interested in spending loads of money on marketing. It's like, how can we do this for free? How can we do this for free? So, you know, you're starting from here, and then as you grow, you can put more budget into things. And I think just having that mindset in business is quite important.
So important. And I think also, like, a lot of, when people first start out, like a lot of young people especially, and I made the same mistake, Natalie, is you get excited about the website and the social media and like the branding, and that is, it's fun to do, right? It's like creative, but that doesn't necessarily have any impact upon your business. That stuff can come later. Like, I don't think I had a website or like a company brand for 7 months of the business, and I don't think you need to rush to do all that stuff. So the fact that you guys took the time to learn it, hone your craft, like real organic growth, it's probably quite nice to look back on that as well.
I think it's quite funny as well, because with our first ever project that we ever started, we thought like the company, getting a company's house account set up, that was like number one priority. Whereas then over time it was like, no, just concentrate on your product, make sure you've got the best product possible for the best price, best value. And it's just understanding there's no point doing a company's house account if you don't have.
I remember when we first started, got our company's house, limited company, I was like, wow, we've made it, haven't we? I was like, are we entrepreneurs now? But like back then it felt like a big thing, because we started quite early. Like, think about it, I think we must have started at like 23 or something, 22 or something. But I would say that it feels like I was really young at the time, but I feel like so much has happened in that 4 or 5 years.
We was so naive back then.
So naive.
But I think you have to be naive in business at the beginning, because that's how you learn. You fail, you learn, and you don't do it again.
You've got to give it a go, haven't you?
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that we've always been quite good at. We haven't been bothered if we look stupid. Like, if we look stupid, we've learnt from it and we go again. But you're learning, and that's the most important thing, I think, in all of this.
You've just not got to give a fuck,
really,
because it's my life. That's all that matters. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think listening to some podcasts over the years has helped us with that mindset as well. Of, you know, I think there was a Stephen Bartlett podcast a while ago, and he literally said, like, you need to want to, like, be happy to look stupid.
Yeah.
And we became happy to look stupid, and we looked stupid. We looked stupid. We did so many things that, you know, we weren't experienced in, so it might not have looked that good or whatever it was. But we learned. Yeah. And that's the most important
Don't look stupid now.
Because I remember as well, like, because back then I was, my only real friend group back in the day, like, at this time, was just the friends that I grew up with at school. Now my circle is literally completely different. But back then, you know, I'd try and start something, and, you know, it's the type of people that, like, almost like put you down because you're the person trying to, like, leave, like, not almost like do a little bit more for yourself, but then you'd be like, no, you know, you look like a bit of a twat there, like, you know, trying to put you down a little bit. But
which is completely normal. Like, it's normal human behaviour, because if you come from the same background and someone's doing more than you're doing, you're naturally going to look at yourself and go, could I be doing a little bit more? So it's completely normal, and I would never be annoyed at someone for feeling like that at all, because it's completely normal.
But also you didn't let that hold you back from chasing what you wanted to do.
Yeah, and I think that would hold a lot of people back. But by not giving a fuck, not giving, you know, you have to like just not care.
I think a big thing as well is because we moved to Manchester, it was like it was a good chance to like distance ourselves, to be like, yeah, you might think that or whatever, but I'm only seeing you twice a year anyway, so you know I don't really care. I'm not. Your opinion isn't putting me down or whatever that much. And like, you'd go back and see them at like family events or whatever, or even like birthdays and whatever, and you come back leveled up each time.
Feels good, doesn't it?
It does. It does feel good, and like, you know, I'm so proud of us from where we've come from, because we've developed ourselves so much. Like, if you would have, like, at one point I thought, Mitch, like, you know, you don't have much hope. Like, not like just not like much hope about being successful or whatever, but you know, I just would never have thought about that. I always used to look at business owners when I was younger and thought, you know what, I'd love to be like you, but I'm not clever enough. But one thing that I'm not like academically clever, but I'm super street smart, and being street smart when you're running businesses is one of the best traits that you can have. No one's ever going to pull the wool over your eyes, you know. And so yeah,
I do think as well, like, people naturally do think that. They look at people who are ahead of them and they're going, okay, well, why am I not doing that? Am I stupid? I can't go and do that. But actually they can go and do that, and it's just having belief in yourself. Like, that for me has been my main thing from like even being a kid. I always had this big belief that I can go on and do something, even though everything around me was telling me that I couldn't go and do anything. Like, you know, you come from a working class background, you know, your mum and dad do 2 jobs each every day just to get the bills paid. You can't go on and do, and I because I was a little bit deluded when I was younger, in terms of saying I can do this and I could do that. People thought I was genuinely crazy and deluded, but I still had that belief no matter what anyone said. It was just noise. And I think you do have to have tunnel vision, believe in yourself, be determined, and just go and do it and not let anything stop you.
Yeah, 100%. I want to get into the journey of Flow to that, and you see your current company. So you had the jewellery brand. Yeah. Sold that.
Yeah, so I was going to just mention that. So when we sold the jewellery brand, that was like the first real moment where I looked and thought, wow, you can actually be successful here, because someone's actually spent quite a lot of money on something that you've created.
And created from scratch as well.
Created from scratch with no money, just an idea, you know. And what we really loved about the jewellery brand was we really loved the marketing side of it. We was obsessed with the marketing side, you know. There's a lot of things that we didn't like about the business model, but the marketing side we loved. And we thought, after we'd sold the company, and we thought, okay, what do we do now? Where are our passions really lied? And then we, you know, it was mainly the marketing side, the sales side. Me and Ash have got quite heavy sales backgrounds. And, you know, that's kind of where Flowed was started, really. A lot of people was asking us for support, and it just grew really organically, from people just needing support, people knowing that we was expertised, quite young as well, which I think people like, because with Flowed, we have a very modernized way of doing sales and marketing, which some of our clients really, really like, and we work with some really big clients. You know, probably one of the biggest companies in the UK is a client of ours, and they love our modernized approach to lead generation and sales and prospecting. So I
think a lot of that comes off the back of our experiences as well. You know, working in multiple different sales roles, small, medium, corporates. I remember time and time again going in to speak with directors with all these ideas of what we should be doing, what we should, and it just, nothing ever came of it. And there's too many processes, you weren't listened to. And I was convinced, I knew that if we could adopt this, we could really make, you know, be successful as a division. But, you know, these things being overlooked and overlooked and overlooked, and over time, you're thinking, why are you not listening? You know, so again, it just comes back to when you're getting no, or just not being listened to, it's like, okay, well, we'll just go and do it ourselves then.
Do you know what's funny as well? So when we first started Flowed, even though we just sold a company, we didn't put any money into Flowed. It was almost like, well, we've just been successful, with nothing. So, you know, why don't you do that again? And because when for instance, if I give you 100 grand to spend on marketing, you're going to find a way of spending that somehow. You know, you're gonna spend it on something.
Give me 100 grand on holiday, mate. You want to see me?
But for instance, if I said, right, I'll give you 1 grand instead, you could still probably generate similar results with that £1,000, but you've just got to get more creative. That's all. So when we started Float, even though we had money to put into it, we didn't put that money into it.
No.
And then and I'm really, really glad that we did that. Even like the website, you know, we built the website, the first ever website ourselves.
So where did it start? Did it start? You were freelancing, right?
Yeah. So at the start, so me and Ash started the business ourselves to begin with ourselves. Ash was the person that thought of the name, which
still very proud of.
What's the story around the name?
So because we do a lot of because we do a lot of emails and the way that our processes kind of work, we thought we like the word flow. But to try and buy the domain name for Flow is probably quite expensive. So and it was trademarked as well. So so we thought of we liked Flowed, you know. So that's how we kind of come up with it.
It took weeks to come up with that name though. It wasn't as simple as we like the word Flow. It took a while. And when I got it, it was like, that is the name.
You have that moment, don't you?
Yeah. And I'm still very proud of the name today. I think it's great. It's perfect for what we do. So yeah, very proud of the name.
So we started the business together. Was running it for a couple of months together. Ash then decided to kind of explore other avenues, mainly just due to because we've just worked on another company together. I think you wanted to almost see what life could be like. Separately, doing things separately. So it was like, and it was just like a freelance setup at that time. So we was doing all of our learnings and things together. Everything was together again, and we was like, well, how about if I'll go try something else, you try this, we'll see what works, we'll see what sticks. Maybe we might be better just going our own routes going forward. But it ended up, we did just end up coming back together, I think, because we've got your strengths are my weaknesses and vice versa. It just has always kind of worked. The business was growing that quick as well. I actually was like, Ash, I need you. Because we had, we'd run the business for like 6 months. We only had 1 staff member, which is, who's still with us this day, Chris, absolutely top guy. My first ever staff member, and I love him to pieces. He's the type of guy, he'd run through brick walls for the company. I love him. So it was basically me and Chris, but Chris was like a pretty inexperienced 21-year-old at the time. And then I was like, Ash, I really could do with some support here because like we're growing, we've got big client base, bigger client base now. Felt like a big client base. Probably wasn't that big looking back.
I think at the time as well, because obviously we live together, it's like every day Mitch is having conversations with me about what's going on. So it was like naturally, I just felt like it was just happening anyway, because it was like every conversation we're like, how should we go about this? How should we go about that? So it was like, it just made sense for me to kind of just let's just come back together. It just makes more sense. Go on then. Mitch. I'll come back.
Go on then.
You should have made him squirm a little bit. I'm sure you did.
There's an Eddie Hearn meme there.
So you've joined forces, and I mean that's really interesting because it's quite rare in business for partners in business to be partners in life as well. So how have you found that?
I would say in the early days it was challenging, but I think what's very good about me and Ash, we really understand each other's strengths and weaknesses. So we complement each other.
We didn't at the beginning.
Yeah, you don't at the beginning.
Because then it was very like, I'll do this, you do that.
You're almost fighting for, okay, no, I'm going to do that. No, I'm going to do that. And then there could be clashes. But what's really important is we know our place. And, you know, there's certain things which I'm good at that Ash isn't good at, and there's, you know, certain things that Ash is really good at and I'm very bad at. But, you know, it's being humble enough to kind of be like, I'm not too great at that.
And it took a couple of years to get to that point. You know, when we was younger, naive, we did have egos, and I think where we are today, it's very, very different. You know, we've developed not just as business people, but personally. You know, we're completely different to who we was 5 years ago. Completely different. Even 2 years ago, last year, so different.
Last week.
True. Like when you start a business, I feel like I've experienced it myself. Just like you said at the beginning, a year and a half ago, I feel like I was such a different person, like completely different. Even to like 3 months ago. Yeah. Probably in like another 3 months, I'll look back at me now and think, God, he was like really different.
That's embarrassing.
Do you know what? I
like that's a good thing. Like I look at that as a good thing now. It's like if I'm not embarrassed about who I was last year, I'm not moving fast enough. I'm not developing at a fast enough rate. So hopefully I'm embarrassing myself now. In a year's time, I go on a podcast and I'm like, yes, smashed it now. You never know.
Love that. No, I genuinely love that. What advice would you give to somebody who's just starting a business today? A young person, say like someone who's just come out of the education system and has an idea. What advice would you give them to get started?
Okay. So there's so much free content on the internet.
Yeah.
So I remember even to this day, a big thing of source of, because we come from friend groups with not a lot of knowledge in them. So if we was going to go and try and absorb knowledge from places, we've got to go out there to go and get it ourselves. I used to DM people who people that I think, okay, I can learn from you, try and network, but podcast, like be really specific with the podcast that you listen to.
Yeah, listen to Rebels.
Yeah, listen to Rebels.
Yeah.
But like I remember that I used to, and you've just got to become really obsessed with learning, I think, because learning new things, and you know, and I think if you've just started a company and you've got 0 staff, you know you might not be doing a lot of sales. Try and go and talk to someone that's got 5 staff. There's no point in trying to go and talk to someone with 500 staff because their problems, they're just alien to you. But someone that's got 5 staff, they're not a million miles away from you to actually, you know, they can still remember some of the issues that you're having. So that's what I would say, is try and find people that are successful but not a million miles away from you, and try and learn from them, because the chances are the problems are going to be more relatable.
I think mine would be to get into something that you're passionate about, because you will find it easier, and because those night times where you've got to be up and you've got to be learning new things, if you're passionate about it, you'll find it fun. So if you want to enjoy what you're doing, I think you'll do it for longer, you'll be better at it because you're more passionate about it. So I'd say definitely that, but also the mindset switch. You do have to change your mindset, and you won't be able to go out as much with your friends, and you know it is important that you commit to the business. If you really want to succeed, you need to commit, and you have to remove some of your personal life out of that, I think. I mean, that's from my own experiences, and it's not, you know, necessarily what you have to do, but if you're really serious, you know, with me and Mitch, our ambitions have always been very, very high, and you know, if we was to talk about our ambitions to our friends and stuff, they'd be like, what? But the ambitions, it's not to be mediocre. And if you don't want to be mediocre, don't be mediocre.
Yeah.
Make sure you're putting the time in. Make sure you're learning new things. Change your mindset. Have that growth attitude. So I think mindset is like huge, and consistency. Just keep at it. Keep plugging. Even when times get tough and times get rough, because they do, happens month in, month out. But you just have to keep getting past those movements, and you will get past them.
Yeah.
But you just have to have the right mindset and not let anything phase you. Just keep going. It's so important to just keep plodding, keep going, making those steps, building those bricks, because you are going to come into some issues.
What I would say as well is focus on one thing. Big thing I see wrong with like new entrepreneurs, they've got 3 businesses and none of them are even remotely successful. How can you grow a successful business at the start when you've got 3 things that you're focused on? Surely you're splitting your time between 30% of your time for each one, and like it might look cool on your Instagram or LinkedIn profile, but you're not actually going to be successful over the period of time.
That's such good advice. That's so good. I love that, because I think also what I'd throw into the mix is, before you start talking about what you like you're going to do and what you're doing, do it.
Yeah,
and I think that's like really, really important.
We did that as well. Like when we was first,
I didn't tell my pet. We didn't tell our parents.
When we was first in business, though, we would, you know, post about it all the time and things, and showcase everything. Whereas now we don't really talk about it too much. Obviously,
it's funny if I met a stranger in the street and they was like, "What you do?" Like, "Oh, just work in marketing."
Yeah.
But like, because like, I'm just like, I don't need to really, like, I don't really need to talk too much.
This literally happens to me the other day. I was having like my hair done and I was like, yeah, I work in a marketing company.
Same.
And then it took me a minute to go, oh, I actually own that marketing company. But yeah, I think it's good to feel though, like you, and that's probably a mindset thing as well. We are so on the ground in our business, and we always have been from day dot, and we always will be. And I think that, yeah, you feel like you're in the business at all times. You're never gonna be. Do you know where I'm going with it?
Yeah.
I don't know where you're going with it.
Yeah, no, neither do I. Moving on. I'm joking. No, I fully think like that's some really solid advice for young people getting into business. What would you say if we're flipping the script a little from some of your amazing successes, like growing to a team of 25 now in what, 2-3 years?
2.5 years.
That's insane. And working with some like mega brands as well. What would you say has been the most difficult thing or challenge you've come across, or maybe something that you failed at?
Yeah, so I would say that at the start of the business, I was a bad manager. Not as in like I was mean to people. I was actually too nice. Okay. So I used to be too nice to people. And what that would do is that would create like an entitlement to staff members, where like they almost felt like they could do what, like kind of, just do whatever they want. So I've almost had to go from being a little bit more stricter as we get bigger, and being a bit more, because naturally I'd like to think I'm just quite a nice person in my nature. Like if I can try and be nice to people,
I can vouch for that.
Try and have a nice conversation, I will do. But what I would say is I've really worked hard on just being a lot more black and white with people. But in the early days, where I remember like the first few staff members that we had, I was like so nice, giving them everything. Yeah. If someone had like a good day, I was like, oh, a £50 bonus that day, or like, do you know, just because I'll just. Yeah.
I think it is hard, like as you grow and you've got more and more people in the business, and for us, like culture is so important. We don't want to be one of these corporate companies that we used to work in and feel like, and we don't want anyone to ever feel like a number or not appreciated. So it's having that balance of making sure everyone feels appreciated, but not going overboard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just you have to get that
like
happy
discipline,
medium.
isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
So discipline with yourself, but also then building like expectations correctly. Because if you start doing that when more people join and the business grows, that's going to be an expectation for everybody, and they're going to want this and this and this. So I think it's some good advice. What was your kind of biggest challenge or failure since starting the business? What have you personally had to kind of overcome?
I think I have literally done every role in the business there is possible. So I think finding my feet in terms of, because the business that we're in now and what we've done before is a little bit different, but it's very similar to what we used to do in different jobs, I suppose. So it's like putting our expertise to use. So I was like a jack of all trades throughout the business of the growth, whereas now I've found my place. I think that was probably a big thing from a personal perspective. I wanted to find my feet, and now I'm really happy in what I'm doing on a daily basis. But aside from me, I would definitely say, again, just culture. I want to ensure that we are a great company to work for, and as you grow and grow and grow, there's more people problems, and you need to ensure that you can support people with those problems, but also just keep the culture how you want to build it. Because when you are a small company, it's so easy to get culture right, but as you grow, it becomes harder, definitely more challenging.
I think another thing as well, probably one of my biggest challenges with running a B2B company, which is what we are. So B2B companies, the founders having personal brands, profiles is really important for the success. Before Flowed, I was like quite a private person online. Didn't really post too much whatsoever. So for me, in order to actually start like posting more, that was actually quite challenging for me, because like now my LinkedIn account does quite decent numbers. Some people agree with me, some people don't agree with me. And yeah, in the early days, like for instance, if you put a post up and people might give you hate that day, I'm going home thinking, am I a prick or something?
It's having that resilience, and also like there's gonna be moments in business that I've experienced this, and a lot of my clients have as well, where there are going to be naysayers and negative comments, but like you guys are a perfect example of putting yourself out there and building brands, because that's like skyrocketed your business. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, 100%. You know, like we started, well, not just on LinkedIn, but we started our personal brands maybe about a year and a half ago. And yeah, what I would say is having a personal brand, if you're a B2B founder, for me is a non-negotiable, because people work with Flowed because of me, because of Ash, because of they believe in who we are, what our expertise, what we do, and you know, the service that we provide. As that grows, people believe more in the team and stuff, but initially, especially at the start, buying into the founders.
People buy from people, whether 100%. It's, you know, if it's a potential new client, they're buying from who owns that business. And because we're bold on our LinkedIn's, I would say, with what we talk about, but the main objective from the get-go was always about being transparent. We try to be transparent in everything we do, and I think new potential clients really appreciate that. You know, if they ever sit on a conversation with us and they want to get to know what we can offer from a service perspective, we will be very transparent in that conversation and make sure that they know where the boundaries are on our end as well, because it's important as an agency or as a service to have your boundaries, and also to build trust as well. Like the power of a brand is it builds trust, it builds credibility, it builds authority. When you jump on that call with somebody, they're already halfway through to conversion because they've already seen your content, they've engaged, you've nurtured them, they understand what you're about, how you work with clients, your results. There's like so many benefits, and your personal LinkedIns have way more followers than like your company. How many do each of you have?
I think I've got that. I don't really keep account of these things, but
he says
it's like 37.2k.
Okay. No, that's specific.
I know. Don't think about these things.
It's around that. I think the big thing for me is like what I like about LinkedIn, because LinkedIn's our main platform, is I like sharing the ups and downs, and I actually like I sometimes treat it as like therapy, putting posts out for things that have gone wrong that week or things that have gone good that week, because it's a nice way of actually just like journaling in a way, which is what I find. And you know, because if you follow me, you'll see the journey, that like the stage that we're on at the minute, because I always post about things that we're going through at the minute. So hopefully, if you're trying to learn from someone that has got 25 staff, does a couple million sales, I'm probably a great person for you to learn from, because I post quite raw stuff.
And also you're building in public and documenting the journey. And I was on a one-to-one coaching a couple of hours ago today, and that was the biggest thing that I said to that person. I said like, they're 20 years experience in business, hardly ever post on LinkedIn. It's like, where do I start? I was like, just use it as a diary, build in public, take people on that journey with you, because when you have those wins and those big moments, you'll have all these people supporting you.
Do you know what I do in terms of a creative process? Like I might be either on a walk with my dog or something, or I'll be, you know, walking or whatever, and I'll just voice note to myself. I'll just create some voice notes, just talking about how I'm feeling, and then, you know, those ideas quite often become posts, and some of the best posts that I've ever done that I've got big numbers or whatever have just been originally a voice note that I've just been recreated into a post, because you know, sometimes you need to just get your ideas out on paper, or like for me it's just easy doing it on voice notes. Completely. How do you guys switch off? Because like you've built this mega business in such a short period of time. How does someone like in the business? Just
I think like we've done a bit of a 360, because now how we now choose to turn off is by going home, which sounds a bit strange, but going to the countryside. That is our thing. So taking the dog on a walk, just getting outside. I think that's the biggest thing for getting us to switch off, because we will come off our phones. If we're outside, it's like no phones. So that is like
I've actually got this thing. So when we go in the country or whatever, I'll put my wellies on and I'll be like, I almost go in like farmer mode. Honestly, because during the week I'm like online, you know, like
CEO vibes,
Slack 24/7, you know, like you can contact me at virtually any time and I'll probably respond within like 5 minutes. But on the weekend I'm like, right, wellies on, farmer jacket on, you know, let's go for a beer in the pub.
It's like two different worlds.
Yeah, literally.
We like it like that, though.
And that for me keeps the balance. Whereas if I was working weekends, which sometimes I do if it's like very pressing, I try not to, just because my weeks are that intense.
Yeah.
Like I literally need to give myself that mental break on the weekend.
I do think times have changed though, like over when we were starting in business, we didn't have a personal life whatsoever, like at all.
Yeah, we've almost...
and it wasn't healthy. It definitely wasn't healthy. Yeah. But, you know, today I think, you know, we've grown, we've developed through this journey.
We've earned the right.
Yeah, I think we've earned the right to enjoy our weekends now.
Such a good point. Like I relate to that in many ways. Like to grow fast like you guys have, that doesn't happen within a 9 to 5. Like you can't build and achieve that growth. Like you can build a successful business and a profitable business, but you can't scale quickly and fast and do all these big things that you want to achieve. And you guys did put that work in, and like I see loads of other people do the same thing to then enjoy and reap the rewards later. Yeah. And those rewards often be bigger if you're willing to make that sacrifice for a short period of time, but also like doing it sustainally, right?
Yeah, 100. And that's what I was just about to say. Like, you know, what we did for the first 2 years wouldn't be sustainable over 10 years.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But it worked for the first 2 years because we needed that lift off. Whereas now it's about consistency and keeping on top of your mental health, because if you're working like a crazy person for 5 years straight, you know, you're probably going to be quite unhappy. You're not going to be a joy to be around. Yeah. Your staff members might not like you.
Yeah. I think finding the right people as well to come on the journey with you is like key.
Yeah. Something I'm very, very proud of are the people in Float at the moment. Yeah. People in the business treat it like it's their own. They'll die for the company, and I love that. And the environment that we've built in our offices at the moment is just really, really good to see. I'm really proud of the team. Yeah, I think everyone's so motivated, and we're all on this journey together. You know, we are doing something that maybe is a little bit out of the norm. You know, we're being disruptive in our agency, in our world. So yeah,
it's a cool little setup as well, because I've obviously been to your offices, and it's a cool little space. It feels like Float in a weird way. I know this sounds mad, but it feels like after speaking to you guys and walking into your office and just the atmosphere and the space, it feels very much like a hub of like energy and like excitement and growth.
I think a big thing for me is we live in a world, and if any founder is listening to this, create an environment where people want to come to work, because people can get remote jobs now if they want them. So there isn't a massive reason for actually someone to go to work, go to an office if they don't have to. So what my job is to make sure that we create an environment where people want to go to work, where people actually think, you know what, I actually prefer working in the office versus working at home.
Yeah.
I do think, though, which is probably some people might not like.
Go on.
But I do think, you know, if people aren't dedicated to being in and around the business, and so, you know, remote work is such a big thing now, and everyone seems to want a remote job, and you know, that's great, you've got the full flexibility, but you're not really on that journey as much, because when you're in the office together and day to day you're in different problems, you're solving things together, it's so collaborative. But when you're at home behind a desk, not speaking to anyone unless you're on a Zoom call or you're in Slack, you know, it just slows everything down so much. And I just now look at it as, you know, if it's not a priority to you to come into the office for 2 days, then for me, you're not really committed to that growth, and that maybe isn't the right journey for you, and that's totally fine, but find a journey that is right for you.
Yeah, completely. I
think one of the big things that I can suggest to you know, people at the start of their journey or career is we've learned the most from being in environments when we was early in our career. We've learned the most, like, from the world of business then, just from, you know, what you like, what's good, what's bad. And, you know, we've had team members that, you know, aren't with us anymore because they might not want to come to an office, and that's cool. And I just think, you know, when you're young, when you're at the start of your career, you need to go and spend time with people. You need to go and earwig people. Yeah. Go and earwig the CEO's sales calls. Yeah. You know, why would like surely you're going to learn so much from those things.
I think it's the speed of growth. Like, if you really care about your speed of growth, within a specific company or if it's your own, whatever, you need to be there.
It's like a different energy. It's like a buzz in that space. Like I look back, if I didn't work in a company and go into that company, so this was like 2-3 years ago, and I went into a team, there's like 50 of us. I'd sit next to the marketing director. Across the table would be like the CEO. Behind me would be the head of creative. To the side of me would be the head of copy. And it's I learned so much in that environment, which I then took away and then did something with.
Yeah.
So I think it's like so many huge benefits.
If you're on a Zoom call, you might just purely be speaking with direct people in your team. You're not learning from different departments, and not just different departments and their skills, but on a personal level. Like some people, you might learn that, oh my God, you're so fast at getting work done. Or you might look at someone else like, oh, you're so nice to everyone in the office. There's so many different things that you could pick up from people, not just in a business and learning perspective, but on a personal level as well.
So true. As we're coming up to the end of the episode, where can people find you guys, follow you, find out more about Flowed?
Yeah, so mainly I'm on LinkedIn. That's like my platform. You can follow me. Follow me at Mitch Clayton. You can follow us, Flowed, www.flowed.co.uk.
So it's Flow, Flow, with a D on the end. Some people get the name wrong. It's Flowed.
Yeah.
Some people pronounce it wrong. So yeah, Flowed. We're on LinkedIn, and yeah, mainly our personal brands are via LinkedIn. So Ashleigh Holmes, Mitch Clayton.
Cool.
And yeah, if you want to hear more about transparent stuff, get yourself on LinkedIn. That's where you'll find us.
I'll put all your links in the episode description so people can find you nice and easily. But just before we close and round up, I always ask every guest the same question. Either of you can answer if you have an answer. What is, or do you have an unpopular opinion that one day could potentially kind of get you cancelled or cause a bit of controversy?
Ooh.
You already kind of mentioned one.
Risky.
You kind of mentioned one. But any kind of rebellious attitudes, it could be on a thing in your industry, in your space, something you see that you disagree with. Do you have anything?
I actually don't. I'm actually going to sit on the fence.
Mine would just go back to the remote working. And for me, like it was so important to me initially that we had remote working within our model, but on I've always wanted us to have a hybrid working model, to have the flexibility of both. But by completely being remote, to me that it's not fair for us to do that to our team because they can't develop correctly. But also, I know it's such a wanted benefit now. It's crazy. Like I can't believe how many people want a remote job, but to me that can come across a little bit lazy. Maybe you're getting into that business for the wrong reasons.
I think also, it fully depends on like where you are in your career and stuff. But I think especially for young people, there's benefits to both, right? There's always pros and cons. But
definitely.
I definitely agree with you.
If you're a working mum or you've got things going on at home, that's completely understandable, and that's a different circumstance. But if we're talking about young people wanting to really go for it with their careers, if you are going to go and work in a business, commit to that business and get in with the action, because you will grow so much faster.
I agree. On that note, thank you so much for coming on the final episode of season 1 of Rebels.
For having us.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to Rebels podcast with me, Shoaib Ahmed. If you've been watching us on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you've been listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, then please give us a 5-star rating and a follow. The more successful this podcast gets, the bigger and better guests we can have on in the future. Thank you.